Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, May 17th, 2025, we're cutting straight to the chase with the major headlines coming out of India. There's a lot happening, and we're here to give you that crucial briefing, the key details you need.
Absolutely. It's quite a moment, actually. We're seeing significant moves in sports, foreign policy, the economy, even social issues. It's a really complex picture, and we want to help you connect the dots.
Okay, let's kick things off. First up, something from the world of cricket, which might surprise a few people. It involves two real giants of the game.
That's right. The ECB, the England and Wales Cricket Board, they've put forward a proposal. They want to rename India's Test Tours of England, the proposed name, the Tendulkar-Anderson Trophy.
Wow. Okay, for anyone who follows cricket, the names Tendulkar and Anderson, that immediately clicks, right? We're talking Sachin Tendulkar and James Anderson, the two most capped Test players ever. Tendulkar with 200, Anderson with 188. Just incredible.
Exactly. And this would mean retiring the Patowdy Trophy, named, of course, after Iftikhar Ali Khan Patowdy and his son, Mansur Ali Khan Patowdy, Tiger Patowdy. Huge figures in Indian cricket history, so replacing that is quite a statement.
And how's the Indian board, the BCCI, reacting?
Well, reports suggest they're actually quite open to it. I mean, technically, it's the host board's prerogative, the ECB's call, to name the series played in England.
So it's a nod to these modern legends.
Precisely. The ECB is clearly aiming to connect with the current generation of fans, celebrating heroes they've actually watched. It keeps Test cricket relevant, you know.
Makes sense. And what players they are. Tendulkar, I mean, what can you say?
Right.
Widely seen as one of the greatest batsmen ever. That record, 15,921 Test runs over 24 years.
Astounding consistency. And then you have Jimmy Anderson, the king of swing, the highest wicket-taking fast bowler in Test history. 704 wickets. Remarkable.
Their head-to-head battles were legendary, too. Anderson got Tendulkar out 9 times in Tests, I remember reading.
He did, but, and this shows the mutual respect, Anderson has gone on record saying Tendulkar was the best batsman he ever bowled to.
That says it all, really.
Yeah.
And both have received major honors. Tendulkar, the Bharat Ratna in India, Anderson, a knighthood in the UK.
It really underlines their status. This trophy, if it happens, reflects that perfectly.
Yeah, it feels like a conscious effort by the ECB to celebrate these more recent icons, keep that fan connection strong.
Definitely. Okay, let's pivot now. From cricket diplomacy to actual high-stakes international diplomacy, India's foreign policy regarding Afghanistan.
Right. This involves India's External Affairs Minister, S. Jaishankar. He had a phone call with the Taliban's acting foreign minister, Amir Khan Muttaqi. And that's significant because
it's pretty unprecedented, actually. India has traditionally been very wary of engaging directly with the Taliban, largely because of their historical links with Pakistan.
So this direct line of communication, it suggests a potential shift, doesn't it? What's driving that?
It seems to be the changing geopolitical situation. Specifically, reports point towards relations between the Taliban and Pakistan getting worse. That potentially opens up a strategic window for India.
Interesting. So what might India be aiming for with this outreach? What are the potential implications?
There are a few layers here, I think. One, it could be laying the groundwork, maybe, for eventual recognition of the Taliban regime, though it's a big step. Two, it suggests India might be looking to use Afghanistan as a point of leverage in its relationship with Pakistan.
A strategic play.
Possibly. And third, it's about reasserting influence in Afghanistan, especially with China becoming more involved there. Plus, there are these unconfirmed whispers, these reports of a secret visit to India by a senior Taliban security figure, Mullah Muhammad Ibrahim Sadr. That hints at maybe deeper talks happening behind the scenes.
This feels like a move away from India's past focus on democratic development in Afghanistan towards something more pragmatic, realpolitik, perhaps.
I think that's a fair assessment. It's a more realist approach. And you can bet Pakistan is watching this very closely. Afghanistan has always been crucial for their idea of strategic depth.
And for the Taliban themselves, what's in it for them?
Enhanced legitimacy, potentially. Getting direct engagement from a major regional power like India, that's significant on the world stage.
What about the Afghan people? How might they see this?
Well, historically, many Afghans view India quite positively, remembering the development aid India provided over the years. So they might see this as, a helpful counterweight to Chinese influence and maybe hope for more economic or humanitarian support from India.
So this phone call, it really feels like a diplomatic pivot point for India in South Asia.
Absolutely. It's a complex calculation, balancing regional power dynamics, particularly with those ongoing tensions with Pakistan. A space to watch, for sure.
Okay, let's switch gears completely. From geopolitics to the athletics track. Big news for Indian sports fans.
Huge news. Neeraj Chopra, India's golden boy of javelin, Olympic champ, world champ. He's finally done it. He's broken the 90-meter mark.
Yes. At the Doha Diamond League, what was the throw?
90.23 meters, a personal best. And, despite all his other incredible achievements, that 90-meter barrier had become this sort of obsession for fans and commentators.
You must have felt that pressure.
He acknowledged it, yeah. But he also said he felt it was coming. He'd thrown over 88 meters multiple times, but actually hitting 90, that's a big psychological barrier crossed.
And his new coach, the legendary Jan Hilizny, the world record holder himself, his influence must be showing.
Seems likely. They've been working together since February, focusing on technique, and now this breakthrough. It's a great sign.
But he didn't actually win the competition in Doha, did he?
No. In a dramatic final round, Germany's Julian Weber unleashed a massive throw, 91.06 meters. So Neeraj finished second.
Okay. Mixed feelings for him then, presumably.
Exactly what he said. He was obviously thrilled to finally break 90 meters. That was a big personal goal. But naturally a bit disappointed not to win. But he also expressed genuine happiness for Weber, said they both push each other. Great sportsmanship.
That's good to hear. And he sounds confident about the future.
Very much so. He believes he can throw even further now, working with Hilizny. And Weber, understandably, was over the moon with his win. It was a fantastic competition for both of them.
Definitely cements Neeraj's legacy further and suggests there's maybe even more to come. Exciting times.
Absolutely. Indian athletics is really on the map now.
Right. Let's move back to the India-Pakistan dynamic. Some pretty stark developments here.
Indeed. Pakistan's Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif, has made quite a significant admission.
He's acknowledged publicly that Indian ballistic missiles hit targets inside Pakistan, including Nurkan Air Base. That contradicts their earlier denials, doesn't it?
It does. Sharif said he got the confirmation from his army chief, General Asim Munir, early on May 10th. He did also mention Pakistan's own military tech, some from China, but crucially confirmed the Indian missiles hit their targets.
And this relates to what some are calling Operation Sindoor. Amit Malviya from the BJP highlighted this. What was that about?
Operation Sindoor appears to be India's military response to that terrible terrorist attack in Pahalgam on April 22nd. It was reportedly launched on May 7th, aimed at terror infrastructure in Pakistan, and Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Reports claim a significant number of terrorists from groups like Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba were eliminated.
And Pakistan responded.
Yes, there was cross-border shelling, drone activity. India then reportedly hit back with coordinated strikes on multiple Pakistani air bases, damaging radar, communications, that sort of thing.
But the hostilities stopped fairly quickly.
Yes, by May 10th, both sides announced an understanding to cease hostilities.
It's still quite something for a Pakistani PM to publicly confirm Indian strikes hit their targets. What's the take on that?
Well, some security analysts are suggesting this whole episode, Operation Sindoor and Sharif's admission, might set a new precedent, maybe signaling India's willingness to be more overt about its counterterrorism responses.
And the international reaction.
There was praise for the ceasefire, people like the UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy welcoming it, but also, the usual concerns about regional stability and whether these kinds of flare-ups distract India from its bigger strategic focus, like China.
So it's definitely sparked a debate about military strategies on both sides.
Without question, the implications are still being unpacked by analysts.
Okay, back to cricket, but looking ahead this time. The India A squad for the Tour of England.
Yes, Abhimanyu Isran will captain the India Ace against the England Lions. These matches are crucial prep for the main test series starting June 20th.
And the A squad usually gives us clues about who the selectors are looking at, right?
Definitely. It's an 18-member initial squad. Shubman Gill and Sai Sudharsan will join later for the second game. The matches start May 30th, so it's good game time for players whose IPL teams didn't make the playoffs.
Any standout names in the squad? Any potential signals there?
Well, Karun Nair's inclusion is interesting. With Virat Kohli retired from all formats, there might be spots opening up in the Test middle order. His call-up could suggest he's back in contention. Also, Ishan Kishan is back in the red ball mix after losing his central contract earlier.
What about the pace attack for the A team?
They've picked Mukesh Kumar, Akashdeep, and Khalil Ahmed. This might be keeping Jasprit Bumrah's workload in mind, and maybe some uncertainty around Mohammad Shami's current form for the main series. There are also pace bowling all-rounders Nitish Kumar Reddy and Shardul Thakur. Their balance could be valuable for the test squad in England.
And the spinners.
Tanish Kirshan, Manav Suthar, and Harsh Dubey get the nod. It's a chance for them to show what they can do in English conditions.
So this I-Tour is a real proving ground.
Absolutely, especially the final match, starting June 13th. That's an intra-squad game against the senior India team. A direct audition, essentially, for those looking to break into the Test XSO. Selectors will be watching that one very closely.
Okay, let's shift to a legal matter now. The Supreme Court of India and a case involving Rohingya refugees.
Yes, the court dismissed a petition alleging the forced deportation of 43 Rohingya refugees. And they were quite critical of the petition itself.
How so? What did the court say?
They called the petition a beautifully crafted story, but said it lacked any real material evidence. The petition was filed by 2 Rohingya refugees based in Delhi.
And what exactly were they alleging?
They claimed these 43 refugees were detained, supposedly for biometric data collection, but then forcibly deported to Myanmar via Port Blair. They even alleged they were blindfolded and restrained on naval ships.
But the court wasn't convinced by these claims.
Not at all. The bench, Justices Surya Kant and N. Koteswar Singh, refused interim orders and really questioned the credibility. Justice Kant explicitly asked for proof videos, photos, and criticized the reliance on just, statements. He also pointed out that similar issues had come up before a larger bench, which had also refused to stop deportations.
Who represented the petitioners? Did they offer anything further?
Senior advocate Colin Gonsalves. He mentioned that the UN Human Rights Office was apparently looking into it. He offered to submit reports, even a tape recording allegedly from Myanmar, but the court pushed back, emphasizing Indian sovereignty, basically saying foreign reports don't override the Indian legal process.
So the petition was dismissed, but what's the next step?
The court tagged this case with other pending ones related to Rohingya deportation. They've scheduled a hearing for all of them on July 31st. So it highlights the court's skepticism about unsubstantiated claims, but the broader issue remains legally complex and sensitive.
Understood. Now let's look at India's trade relationship with Pakistan. More developments there.
Yes, India seems to be tightening the screws further on trade. They've expanded the restrictions on goods coming from Pakistan.
How so? It wasn't just about direct trade anymore.
Exactly. The ban now covers goods originating from Pakistan, even if they're shipped through third countries, like the UAE, for example.
Okay. And what triggered this latest move?
It follows a notification from the Ministry of Commerce and Industry on May 2nd. This seems directly linked to that Pahalgam terrorist attack we mentioned earlier. It's led to much tighter scrutiny by Indian customs.
India had already cut direct trade ties, right? The Atari border post was closed.
That's correct. The Atari integrated check post closed on April 24th, so direct trade was already halted. These new rules target those indirect routes, and importantly, they apply even to shipments that were already on their way before the ban was announced.
Which agency is handling the enforcement of this?
The Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, the DRI, they're the ones tasked with intercepting these shipments trying to come through third countries.
This feels like a significant escalation in India's trade posture towards Pakistan. What are the potential economic impacts?
Well, it's definitely going to hit businesses that were using those third country routes to get around the direct ban. It could also disrupt those international trade networks that were facilitating these movements.
So India is making its security concerns very clear in its trade policy.
Very clear. It's reshaping those regional trade dynamics significantly. And it raises the question of whether we'll see even more barriers going up in the future.
Okay, let's shift from trade policy to political sparring on social media. This involves 2 prominent figures in Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes, Chief Minister Omar Abdullah and his predecessor, Mehbooba Mufti. They've had a bit of a public spat online about India-Pakistan relations and the Indus Waters Treaty, the IWT.
What started it?
Abdullah posted a video from an aerial tour of Wooler Lake. In his post, he mentioned the Tobal Navigation Barrage project. Now, this project was stopped way back in the early 80s because Pakistan objected under the IWT. Abdullah then sort of mused about maybe restarting it, suggesting the treaty was temporarily suspended.
And Mehbooba Mufti took issue with that.
Strongly. She called his remarks dangerously provocative, especially given the current tensions. She accused him of essentially playing politics with a sensitive issue, a blind lust for scoring points, as she put it.
The familiar political rivalry there.
Absolutely. That's always simmering beneath the surface. But beyond the personalities, it touches on those really sensitive issues of water sharing and the status of treaties like the IWT, especially when geopolitics are tense.
So you have Abdullah floating the idea of reviving old projects and Mufti warning against rhetoric that could escalate things.
Exactly. It's classic political maneuvering, really. Using social media to stake out positions, rally support. These kinds of exchanges can actually influence the public conversation around diplomacy and resource management in the region.
Right. Let's turn now to Gujarat and some news involving the media sector there.
Yes, Bahubali Shah, who is a director at Gujarat Samachar Ltd., has been arrested by the Enforcement Directorate, the ED.
On what charges?
Money laundering. It apparently stems from a complaint filed back in 2023. However, he's been granted interim bail until May 31st by a special PMLA court, mainly due to health reasons.
So he's not currently in custody.
No. After the arrest, he had a medical check and was admitted to an ICU at a private hospital. His lawyers quickly applied for regular bail, citing his health and promising cooperation once he recovers.
Did the ED fight the interim bail?
They didn't oppose the interim release, but said they'd respond to the regular bail application later. The judge set conditions for the interim bail, a surety, a personal bond of 10,000 rupees, regular health updates to the investigating officer, and crucially, no interfering with the case.
Has this arrest caused any political ripples?
Yes, opposition leader Rahul Gandhi weighed in, criticizing the arrest. He framed it as an attempt to silence Gujarat Samachar, suppress media freedom, and democratic voices. He made a statement about India being governed by truth and the Constitution.
So the legal process continues. What happens next?
The court will take up Shah's regular bail plea again on May 31st, so we'll have to wait and see what happens then.
Okay, now for a story that's quite different, but highlights a growing modern concern: digital addiction.
Yes, a really concerning case from Ahmedabad in Gujarat. A nursing student reportedly developed a severe addiction to watching short video reels online.
How severe?
Extremely. Reports say she was spending up to 12 hours a day watching them. And then, in a desperate attempt to avoid exams and just keep watching, she deliberately fractured her own right hand.
That is truly shocking. How did mental health professionals react?
Those at Telemanaz, the mental health helpline she contacted, were obviously very concerned. They noted they've seen a general rise in screen time and compulsive digital behavior since the pandemic started.
Did the student say why it started?
She apparently started about 6 months earlier, initially just out of loneliness and boredom, but it quickly escalated into something she couldn't control.
Is there any positive news from this? Did she get help?
Yes, thankfully. After 4 months of intensive counseling, she reportedly recovered enough to manage her addiction and was able to sit for her exams. But the case really underscores this growing worry about excessive screen time, especially among young people.
It really highlights the need for awareness, early intervention, and maybe better digital wellness education.
Definitely. It raises big questions about this psychological impact of constant social media consumption and the need for balance.
Okay, let's move into the economic sphere now. Looking at consumer trends in India, specifically snacking.
Right. The latest data for fiscal year 2025 shows that snack consumption in India basically flatlined, stagnant. It's the first time there's been no growth in this sector since the COVID period.
That's interesting. Why this slowdown? What are the factors?
It seems to be a mix of things. Analysts talk about consumption fatigue. Maybe people just aren't snacking quite as much as they were. High prices and general inflation are definitely playing a part too. People are either buying the same amount or slightly less of things like biscuits, noodles, namkeen, those savory snacks. We're also seeing slower growth for the big national brands, with some consumers shifting to cheaper local options to save money.
Is there data backing this up?
Yes. Kantar data shows no growth in the number of times people bought snacks, which is a first since the pandemic. Overall consumption per household is steady at around 12.8 kilos a year, but specific categories like noodles and biscuits have seen volume declines. Biscuits are the biggest chunk, about 56% of volume, but their growth slumped to just 1% from 10% the previous year. Savory snacks also slowed down.
And inflation is a key driver here.
Seems like it. Commodity costs, especially edible oil prices, shot up 45% increases after import duties went up. That forced manufacturers to shrink pack sizes, shrinkflation, which likely led people to buy fewer packs. There's also a Mondelez survey suggesting people are becoming more mindful, maybe choosing smaller portions, being more budget conscious with snacks.
So how are analysts reading this overall trend?
Mostly as an expected correction after the pandemic boom, they think manufacturers might need to get creative now, maybe more flexible pricing, different pack sizes, more innovation, incentives to get demand going again.
But snacking itself is still popular.
Oh, yes. The report says 86% of consumers still see snacking as a daily thing. So the habit is strong. It's just that affordability and adapting to consumer needs are going to be really key for growth moving forward.
All right, finally, let's end on a more upbeat economic note. Overall growth projections for India.
Yes, some positive news here. The United Nations mid-year report projects India will stay the fastest growing major economy in the world. They're forecasting 6.3% GDP growth for 2025 and expect that momentum to continue into 2026 with maybe 6.4% growth.
That's impressive, especially with global uncertainty around. What's underpinning this resilience?
The UN points to strong domestic demand and continued government spending. That's helped keep employment steady and inflation within the Reserve Bank of India's target range. India's capital markets have also been booming record highs late last year, outperforming many other emerging markets. We've seen huge growth in retail investors, loads of IPO activity. India actually accounted for 30% of global IPOs in 2024.
And manufacturing, is that contributing too?
Definitely. The manufacturing sector has been expanding consistently for about a decade now, helped by supportive policies and decent external demand. Exports hit an all-time high in 2024-25, over $824 billion, driven by services and non-oil goods. And another interesting point, defense production has surged, up 174% since 2014-15. India is becoming a significant global defense supplier.
So it sounds like a combination of factors driving this positive outlook.
Absolutely. Government initiatives pushing self-reliance, Atmanirbhar Bharat, solid economic fundamentals, strong domestic demand, growing global relevance. It all adds up. India is really seen as a key engine for future global growth right now.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into today's key headlines from India. Quite a range of developments we've covered.
It really is, from, cricket trophies and diplomatic phone calls to economic trends, social issues, military tensions. It shows just how dynamic and complex things are in India right now.
We hope this briefing is giving you, our listener, some valuable context and maybe a few aha moments along the way.
Yeah, we encourage you to keep following these stories, think about how they connect, and form your own views on what it all means.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Looking at everything we've discussed today, all this rapid change, what single trend or headline do you think might have the biggest long-term impact on India and maybe the world? Something to ponder.
Indeed. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the events shaping our world. Thanks for joining us.